So without further ado, Mark Elliott, welcome to CEO Money.
Hey, Ed, how are you? It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Can't complain. First of all, Mark, I want to thank you for being a pioneer for the most part with regard to the STEM market. Obviously, in the United States, we have a problem with science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And my kids have been fortunate enough to be in a school district that's basically put that on the front burner. And we know now how important it is. So I want to thank you for what you're doing to contribute to global education in that area. So, Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started.
Well, I was in the ERP world for years with Burroughs, Unisys, and that sort of thing, Tandem, Hewlett-Packard, and then got into the software business. But got into that, sold it, and got invited to join Apple, where they wanted to, and this is back in 2000, 2001, where they wanted to change their whole approach and to sales and the education space. Back in that time, that was the majority of their education or the revenues they had. This is right after Steve Jobs, Tim Cook was there, and so our approach was to instead of talking about boxes and how fast they were and the number of pixels and things like that, but to start selling solutions. And so that's what we did. I was brought in senior director there. I had everything reported into me other than the direct sales reps, but all the services, software, and that sort of thing. Channel partner alliances were under what we called the outside the box team right there. So it was a real opportunity to start looking at breaking the digital divide and bringing in, laptops and tablets and those sort of things. Back in that time frame, we were a little bit ahead of the curve right there. The schools weren't really ready, Ed, at that time for, laptops. The batteries lasted 4 hours, and, the internet and infrastructure and all of the things that were just really weren't there. The publishers weren't there. But I can tell you, what I saw there was I got involved with an interactive whiteboard company called Promethean, and that was what I saw as the first major bridge that could bridge the gap from teachers who were used to being on the stage to being to bringing technology in the classroom and opening the world and really giving teachers to be relevant with students that were tired of learning the way that their parents and grandparents and everybody else did. And so the interactive whiteboard was the first step. I joined Promethean as their president in 2005, and we've sold there's nearly, 8 million interactive whiteboards around the world now. And so that was the first step, and it's just been a pleasure because our whole approach has been change the classroom, change the world. And STEM now is a big element. I left Promethean. They were acquired by a company out of China, and joined Boxlight. They were the really a big innovator. They came out with the first interactive projector, and then we now have STEM classes, flat panels. So I've seen the world change. I mean, the classroom of today, I used to tell people back in 2005 there was more technology in a police car than there was in a classroom.
That's true.
And that's not the case today. You would love to go to school today with all the excitement, the interactivity, the ability to do personalized learning and personalized instruction and everything, and the teachers that are excited, the kids are excited. It's a totally different world.
One thing that's interesting, what you just spoken about, was the quote-unquote digital divide. And we're seeing that played out both at the workplace or workforce, for older workers, and we're also seeing it for younger students who aren't necessarily involved in or have access to the technology that's necessary to push them toward a 21st century workplace. How important is it to try to bridge that digital divide with technology like Boxlight to get people involved in science and technology and engineering and mathematics?
Well, for STEM, I mean, there are more students, more gifted students coming out of China today than we have students in the United States. And across the world, everybody recognizes the correlation between having STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and their economies and students coming out to build that. The whole economy is built off of that in a whole lot of ways right there. It drives so much. And so we're seeing globally a big focus on STEM, and here in the United States, fortunately, we're seeing that now as well, with grants that are coming out, with federal programs, and every district of any size that we're talking with is now adding STEM coordinators and people to focus on that because they recognize how important it is to get students excited about these disciplines early. not just, when they hit high school or something like that, but early on. And that's our approach, is to get the type devices into them that can help them do things like measure distance and measure humidity and measure sound waves and all of these type things, with cookbook type lesson plans that allow teachers in elementary school to go in, follow a cookbook, but teach things with science on photosynthesis or other things that help them see that science is not just formulas and mathematics, but it is a practical way to have fun and to really change the world positively.
Mark, so what are some of the specific products that Boxlight brings to the table when it comes to that technology and putting it in the classroom?
Well, one of the things that we're really proud of is we have a product called the Lab Disc. And the Lab Disc is a multidiscipline type device that if you were to remember the labs that you were in the past, or even your children have been in, they would have to go in, they would take all of these sensors and probes and have to calibrate them, make sure they're working and things like that, and then connect them into some kind of display and do that. Our approach is with the advent of all of the tablets that are out there today, that you don't need to be tethered to the classroom or to a lab environment. We can take a device now that looks like a little space capsule. It's a little handheld device, and we have one for general science, one for environment, one for physics, and one for biology and chemistry, and they have different types of probes. So now the teacher can go and the students can go and take these devices and be able to measure things that they couldn't do, and they don't have to do it just in the classroom. So they can be mobile, they can go out into the field, they can do like testing for water turbidity, they can test for a noise level. We had a great experiment that was done over in Moscow, where fourth graders went out all over the city, and these devices also have GPS built into them, and they came back and they were seeing how noisy and where the noisiest place in Moscow. When they came back, they found out that they had noise barriers that they were putting around, and the results showed that they weren't having the impact that they thought. So these fourth graders, the data was so significant, they had the mayor of Moscow come in and look at that, and then he brought the Prime Minister, Medvedev, into the classroom. So you can bet that that's the type thing that, fourth graders, 9-year-old children are now excited about, and the attention they got and how much fun they can have and how relevant they can be and how they can have an impact, a dramatic impact on the world through science.
Well, I've seen my own son kind of go through that myself, in the sense that he's created a perpetual motion machine. He's also created a water filter. And also, as weird as it sounds, you have 6th and 7th and 8th graders already doing pretty serious robotic projects, in addition to competing against each other at the state and national level. So that in itself says something about what actually is happening in education, even kids that young, things that we hadn't thought about.
A very progressive district. That's incredible that they're doing that type of thing. But our approach is to give them the tools that are much less expensive than if you had to do these a la carte. So we have a device that's portable, mobile, and it connects to Bluetooth, and now you can go in at a third of the cost there, which is always a big element for part of this, and so we can get the manufacturing economies of scale there from producing these. But the important thing is to get them in the hands of the children early and to have them working with it and to get excited, and then it's self-perpetuating. It just keeps fulfilling. Your son, I'm sure, has got the
yes, he does.
He's done. I'd love to have him go to Georgia Tech.
Well, I have some friends that went to Georgia Tech too. But Mark, we're up against it. How can people get a hold of Boxlight if they're interested in contacting your corporation and looking at the tools that you have?
Absolutely. We're NASDAQ. We're traded on NASDAQ right now. It's BOXL. And we went public November 30th, and then just Boxlight.com.
Perfect. Mark, thank you very much for bringing that to light for us. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the mission you have, and I thank you for joining us.
Well, Ed, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you. Again, Ed Baxter sitting in for Michael Yorber at CEO Money. We'll be right back on this other side with a very special announcement.